Looking for a place to play? If you sign up on Patreon, you'll get access to our webcam league on Discord. All patrons are qualified to enter, and there are cool prizes involved. Sign up to Patreon and start playing. You can also support us by purchasing a TCG player through our Decklists in the description. We love TCG Player because it gives the best prices online and still supports our local game stores. Finally, if you are looking for playmats and t-shirts, check out our store on playingwithpowermtg.com. We add new merchandise all the time, so be sure to check back frequently. Thanks for watching. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Playing with Power MTG, where we play with the most powerful cards in the most powerful formats. Tonight we have something very special for you. When we went to SCGCon this last year, we had a proverbial gathering of the Godos. There were 4 players, all bringing Godo Bandit Warlord decks. So we did what any logical person would do, and we put them all together. This ended up being a very interesting table, but before we spoil anything, we will let you see the gameplay. The ability to go to SCGCon is because of your support from Patreon. This helps us travel out and meet up and jam games with people in a fun atmosphere. When the time comes when the world is safe and back to normal, we will be traveling again to conventions. If you sign up to Patreon, you will help us with these costs and get perks like early access to videos and access to our Discord webcam league, which is in full swing. Sign up today and thank you for your support. Now, let's start out by showcasing our fighters this evening. First, we have Ryan, bringing the primer version of Godo Bandit Warlord. This version of Godo is the primer recommendation of Godo with only 1 to 2 cards changed. Ryan's opening hand contains an Argentum Armor, Mana Crypt, Lion's Eye Diamond, Mana Vault, Sol Ring, and 2 Mountains. Next, we have Tony, bringing his own version of Godo. Tony is one of the main core contributors to the primer and brought his own version with some of his own changes to the table. Tony aggressively mulliganed, and his opening hand contains a Sol Ring, Mountain, and a Lion's Eye Diamond. No joke. After that, we have Alex, piloting an older version of Godo Bandit Warlord. This version is based upon the primer, but is a bit older from the versions Tony and Ryan were running. Alex is known as his game store's local CEDH advocate and had brought over 20 CEDH decks with him. Alex's opening hand contains a Gemstone Caverns, Blood Moon, Ancient Tomb, Everflowing Chalice, Treasonous Ogre, and 2 Mountains. Finally, we have Lincoln, piloting a more budget version of Godo. While he still had some expensive pieces in his deck, he opted for a few more budget choices in other areas. Lincoln's opening hand contains a Fire Diamond, Urza's Incubator, Palladium Mirror, Mana Crypt, and a Felwar Stone. Without further ado, let's kick off this gregarious game of gentleman's gallantry. Ryan wins the Masquerade Ball Dance competition and gets to start us off. But Alex has a pre-game action and puts Gemstone Caverns onto the battlefield, exiling Blood Moon, which is pretty funny in this matchup. Ryan plays a Mountain for turn. He casts a Mana Crypt. He casts a Sol Ring. He casts a Lion's Eye Diamond. He taps 4 and casts what he drew off of the top, which was a Stranglehold. The rest of the table knows the game is over before it started, and Ryan passes the turn. Tony plays a Mountain for turn. He casts a Sol Ring. He also casts a Lion's Eye Diamond. He passes. Alex, keeping the train rolling, also casts a Lion's Eye Diamond. He plays an Ancient Tomb for turn. He taps his Ancient Tomb to cast Everflowing Chalice, kicked once. He ends his turn. Lincoln plays a Mana Crypt. He casts a Fire Diamond. He passes. During his upkeep, Ryan loses his Mana Crypt trigger and takes 3 damage. He plays a Mountain for turn. He plays a Mana Vault. He sacrifices Lion's Eye Diamond, discards his hand, and adds 3 red to his pool. He casts his commander, Godo. Godo enters, and Ryan fetches up Helm of the Host onto the battlefield. He equips Helm onto Godo, and attacks for the win. Well, that was fast, so let's go again. In this game, Tony's opening hand contains an Imperial Recruiter, Simian Spirit Guide, Basalt Monolith, and a Sandstone Needle. Alex's opening hand contains an Argentum Armor, Duretti Scrap Savant, Desperate Ritual, Prismatic Lens, Sol Ring, Buried Ruin, and a Mountain. Lincoln's opening hand contains an Argentum Armor, Imperial Recruiter, Snow-Covered Mountain, Ancient Tomb, Myriad Landscape, Krark Clan Stoker, and a Krark Clan Ironworks. Ryan's opening hand contains a Mountain, Chalice of the Void, Mana Vault, Honor-Worn Shaku, Flame Shadow Conjuring, and a Great Furnace. And Tony gets to start us off. Tony plays a Sandstone Needle into play tapped and passes. Alex plays a Mountain for turn. He casts a Soul Ring. He casts Prismatic Lens. He ends his turn. Lincoln plays an Ancient Tomb for turn. He taps his tomb to cast Milligan. He gives the turn to Ryan. Ryan plays a Mountain for turn. He casts a Mana Ball. He then casts Chalice of the Void on 0 to prevent any fast mana from hitting the board. He passes the turn. Tony plays a Mountain for turn. He casts an Imperial Recruiter. Recruiter enters, and Tony fetches up a Treasonous Ogre into his hand. Tony passes. Alex plays a Mountain for turn. He casts Duretti, Scrap Savant. He activates Duretti's first ability, discarding Argentum Armor and Buried Ruin and drawing 2 cards. He passes. Lincoln starts off his turn by casting Soul Ring. He plays a Mountain for turn. He taps his Ancient Tomb to cast Imperial Recruiter. Recruiter enters, and he also fetches up a Treasonous Ogre. Lincoln passes. Ryan plays a Great Furnace for turn and passes. Tony plays a Mountain for turn. He casts Treasonous Ogre. He pays 18 life to add 6 red to his pool and casts Godo. Godo enters, and he fetches up Argentum Armor onto the battlefield. He pays an additional 18 life to add 6 more red and attaches Argentum Armor to Imperial Recruiter. He attacks Lincoln with Recruiter. Argentum Armor triggers, and he destroys Ryan's Mana Vault. Lincoln blocks with his Recruiter. All finished up, Tony passes. Alex plays a Mountain for turn. He casts his commander, Godo. Godo enters, and Alex fetches up a Hammer of Nazan onto the battlefield. Nazan triggers, and he attaches it to Godo. He activates Duretti's second ability, sacrificing Prismatic Lens to bring back Argentum Armor onto the battlefield. Nazan triggers, and Alex attaches Argentum to Godo. Alex passes. Lincoln starts off his turn by casting Treasonous Ogre. He pays 15 life and casts Godo. Godo fetches up Helm of the Host onto the battlefield. He pays 15 more life and attaches Helm to Godo. Then Lincoln swings for the win. Let's do another, shall we? In this game, Alex's opening hand contains a Mountain, Buried Ruin, Welding Jar, Expedition Map, Basalt Monolith, Brass Squire, and a Thunderclap. Lincoln's opening hand contains a Crystal Vein, Snow-Covered Mountain, Prismatic Lens, Sandstone Needle, and a Mana Crypt. Ryan's opening hand contains a Final Fortune, Mog Salvage, Dwarven Ruins, Blast Zone, and 2 mountains. Tony's opening hand contains a Final Fortune, City of Traders, Mountain, and a Goblin Matron. And Alex gets to start us off. Alex plays a Mountain for turn. He casts an Expedition Map. He follows up with a Welding Jar. He passes. Lincoln casts Mishra's Bauble. He casts a Mana Crypt. He casts a Prismatic Lens. He finally plays his land for turn, which is a Sandstone Needle. He sacrifices Mishra's Bauble, looking at the top card of Ryan's library. Lincoln passes. During Ryan's upkeep, Lincoln draws a card through Mishra's Bauble. Ryan plays a Dwarven Ruins for turn. He passes. Tony plays a Cavern of Souls for turn, naming Goblin. He passes the turn. Alex plays a Mountain for turn, and passes. Lincoln plays a Crystal Vein for turn. He sacks his Crystal Vein for 2, and casts his commander, Godo. Godo enters, and Lincoln fetches up Helm of the Host onto the battlefield. Without any mana to equip him, Lincoln passes. Ryan plays a Mountain for turn. He casts a Sensei's Divining Top. He ends his turn. Tony plays a City of Traders for turn. He casts Goblin Matron. Matron enters, and Tony fetches up a Dockside Extortionist into his hand. Tony passes. At the end of Tony's turn, Alex sacks his Expedition Map to fetch up an Ancient Tomb into his hand. Alex plays an Ancient Tomb for turn. He casts Basalt Monolith. He passes. Lincoln also plays an Ancient Tomb for turn. He taps his Ancient Tomb to equip Helm onto Godo. In response to the equips, Ryan sacks his Dwarven Ruins to cast Mog Salvage, targeting Helm of the Host. Plans thwarted, he attacks Ryan with Godo, triggering an extra combat step. Ryan takes the damage, and Lincoln attacks Ryan again with Godo, and Ryan takes it a second time. All finished, Lincoln passes. Ryan plays a Blast Zone for turn, and passes. On his turn, Tony casts Dockside Extortionist. In order to keep Tony off of treasures, Alex sacks his Welding Jar to regenerate his Basalt Monolith. Ryan activates his Sensei's Top, looking at the top 3 and rearranging. He then activates Top to draw a card to put it on top of his library. Then Dockside Extortionist enters, and Tony creates 3 treasures. Tony passes. Alex plays a Mountain for turn. He taps his Ancient Tomb to cast Brass Squire. He follows up with a Chalice of the Void on 1. Alex passes. During his upkeep, Lincoln loses his Mana Crypt trigger and takes 3 damage. He plays a Snow-Covered Mountain for turn. He attacks Ryan with Godo twice. Ryan takes the hit both times, and Lincoln passes the turn. Ryan plays a Mountain for turn. He casts a Mana Crypt. He passes. Tony starts off his turn by casting Goblin Crater Maker. He plays a Mountain for turn, sacking a City of Traders. He attacks Ryan with both Dockside Extortionist and Goblin Matron. All finished, Tony ships his turn. Alex plays a Buried Ruin for turn. He taps his Ancient Tomb and sacks his Berry Ruin to return Welding Jar to his hand. In response, Tony sacrifices his Goblin Crater Maker to destroy Alex's Brass Squire. He casts Welding Jar, and then Alex passes. During his upkeep, Lincoln loses his Mana Crypt trigger and takes 3 damage. He casts a Lion's Eye Diamond. He attacks Ryan twice, and Ryan takes it both times. Lincoln passes. Ryan plays a Gemstone Caverns for turn, and passes. Tony plays a Mountain for turn, and also passes. Alex plays a Mountain for turn. He taps his Ancient Tomb to cast Godo. Godo enters, and Alex fetches up a Helm of the Host onto the battlefield. He casts a Mana Crypt. He activates Helm to equip Godo. In response, Ryan casts a Braid, targeting Godo. Godo dies, and Alex passes the turn. During his upkeep, Lincoln loses his Mana Crypt trigger and takes 3 damage. He plays a Myriad Landscape. He attacks Alex with Godo. In his second combat, he attacks Ryan with Godo. Ryan received 21 combat damage with a single commander, and Ryan dies. Lincoln ends his turn. Tony plays a Mountain for turn, and passes. Alex plays a Gemstone Caverns for turn. He taps his Ancient Tomb to cast Godo for the second time. Godo enters, and he fetches up Hammer of Nazan onto the battlefield. Hammer triggers, and he equips it to Godo. Alex passes. Lincoln starts off his turn by casting Kark Clan Stoker. He attacks Alex with Godo. Alex blocks with his own Godo. Lincoln's Godo dies because Alex's has Indestructible through the hammer, which Lincoln did not forget, but he wanted his commander to die so he could recast it. In his second main phase, he taps his Ancient Tomb and sacks his Lion's Eye Diamond, discarding his hand, to cast Godo again. Godo enters, Lincoln fetches up Hammer of Nazan onto the battlefield. Hammer triggers, and Lincoln attaches it to Godo. Lincoln ships his turn. At the end of Lincoln's turn, Tony casts Crash, targeting Alex's Helm of the Host. In response, Alex sacks his Welding Jar to regenerate Helm. On his turn, Tony casts Final Fortune. He immediately moves to a second turn and draws a card. He didn't get the draw that he wanted and casts a Welding Jar. He moves to his end step and loses the game. On his turn, Alex casts Crash to destroy Lincoln's hammer, then equips Helm to Godo and wins the game. In this game, Lincoln's opening hand contains a Kark Clan Stoker, Palladium Mirror, Fire Diamond, Ancient Tomb, Magnetic Theft, and a Skirk Prospector. Ryan's opening hand contains a Crystal Vein, Emergent Zone, Basalt Monolith, Mox Opal, Ancient Tomb, and 2 mountains. Tony's opening hand contains a Crystal Vein, Brass Squire, Treasonous Ogre, Fiery Cannonade, and 2 mountains. Alex's opening hand contains a mountain, Treasonous Ogre, Fractured Power Stone, Mind Stone, and a Sandstone Needle. And Lincoln starts us off. Lincoln plays an Ancient Tomb for turn. He taps his Ancient Tomb to cast Fire Diamond. He passes. Ryan plays a Mountain for turn. He casts a Mox Opal. He also passes. Tony plays a Mountain for turn and passes as well. Alex plays a Sandstone Needle into play tapped. He ends his turn. Lincoln starts off his turn by tapping his Ancient Tomb to cast Palladium Mirror. He ships his turn. Ryan plays an Ancient Tomb for turn. He taps his Ancient Tomb to cast Basalt Monolith. Ryan gives a turn to Tony. Tony plays a Crystal Vein for turn. He casts a Rite of Flame, adding 2 red. He casts Seething Song, adding 5 red. He casts Treasonous Ogre. He pays 18 life and casts Godo. He fetches up Helm of the Host onto the battlefield. He pays 12 life and uses his remaining floating to equip Helm onto Godo. He moves to attacks and attacks for the win. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got to say, that game was magnificent. It was very interesting to see what happens at a CEDH table when 4 fast combo decks, all with the same strategy, attempt to go for their wins. The first and the fourth games were definitely explosive, and the game ended very quickly. The second and the third games, however, were actually quite different. The players had to adjust their strategies to reflect the change at who was at the table. No longer could they just ramp and cast their commander, but instead they had to think of how they were going to disrupt the other players from winning as well, because they couldn't outpace one another. This is an excellent example of having to pivot from defensive to offensive at any time, depending on the board state. Another interesting part of the game was that there was a lot of tech in those decks that were far less effective or just downright dead because of who was at the board. A Blood Moon isn't nearly as crippling with 4 mono red decks at the table. Mog's Salvage became strictly worse, and Pyroblast was a completely dead draw. It's just another lesson in the fact that adjusting to your meta is important in your local playgroups. Congrats to everyone on their wins. Ryan's win came from an amazing opener and even better first draw. The game was over almost immediately. Tony's win was really cool. He went from 1 mana turn 1 to generating 18 in total by turn 2. Alex's win was hard fought with a lot of interaction. His persistence and looking for the right opportunity is what won him the game. Lincoln's win was also very quick. He was able to get Treasonous Ogre out on turn 3 and go for the win. We do want to address a misplay that happened in game 3. Ryan cast Mog Salvage targeting Lincoln's Helm of the Host. He sacked his Dwarven Ruins to do so. The problem is, his Dwarven Ruins was tapped at the time. He actually tried to cast it for free, since he normally never had to hard cast it. Unfortunately, he couldn't, since there were no islands at the table. In the confusion of the cast, cards got shuffled around and Ryan untapped the Dwarven Ruins by accident. He then thought he had the mana to cast it. We considered scrapping this game, but the rest of it was really interesting and we wanted to show it to you all. It was an honest mistake, and we apologize for missing it during the game. We had a blast playing with you all at SCGCon last year. We hope when the world returns to normal that we will be able to play with everyone again sometime in the future. In the meantime, check out our webcam league on Patreon. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Tune in next time when we duke it out to see who will be king of the competitive EDH table. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.